Hello and welcome to the Energy Realities podcast with David Blackmon. How are you today, David?
Oh, I'm just happy as a clam. It was a wonderful weekend. I'm all tanned, rested, and ready to go here.
Is autumn coming to Texas or is it too early?
Well, it did for a week or two, but now we're back in the 90s every afternoon, so I'm getting a little dragged out by this long summer. At least it was a
Oh,
mild summer, but it's lasting a long time.
yeah, that's climate change for you.
Yes.
Can't trust it. And we've got Tammy Nemeth in the UK. Tammy, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Our power's been going off and on today, so if I suddenly cut out, that's why.
Why is that?
Well, probably because so much of the grid here is wind, and the big storm on the weekend took some damage up north, apparently. So there's issues on the grid.
Well, amazing. And you don't really have much backup capacity, do you?
No, the backup is interconnections, right? So
Yeah, totally reliable. And Stu Turley, where are you today, Stu?
Oh, I'm in Abilene today, but yesterday morning we had a wolf hanging out by the house up in by the lake house. So you see Abilene, no wolves. I'm okay either place.
Live close to nature.
Yes, just not too close.
Yeah, a respectable distance. Sorry. And I'm Irina Slav, and we have a wonderful autumn, which is cooler than last year and the year before last. It's amazing. Must be climate change. But I'm not complaining. And today we're going to talk about fear and loathing in the net zero camp because it has been a really bad year for the net zero camp. And a lot of people from that camp are blaming President Donald Trump, but I believe it's reality setting in. And Trump is just a very, very convenient scapegoat, not without reason, because he has wreaked havoc on net zero policies in the US. David, what do you think about what has been happening in the net zero camp this year and more recently in the past couple of weeks?
Well, you're right. It's been a very bad year for the net zero camp, even though their media continues to try to prop it all up. And the disciples like Al Gore and Larry Fink over at BlackRock, who, by the way, is the new chairman at the WEF. It's like it got almost no news, but the new leader at the WEF is Larry Fink, who controls about $18 trillion in capital. What, Tammy?
he's interim.
He's interim. Yeah. Well, we'll see how interim that is, right?
Yeah.
I can just see him assuming Klaus Schwab's demeanor here over the next 20 years or so. Same personality. So, yes, I mean, there's a lot of blame being put on President Trump. Some of that's deserved. Some of it probably isn't. The reality is that the energy transition has been failing for several years now. In the United States, for example, President Trump inherited a landscape in which dozens and dozens, perhaps hundreds of startup companies who got their start with big grants from the federal government have already declared bankruptcy. It makes the Solyndra scandal during the Obama years look like petty cash at the average mid-sized company. And so it was already failing when President Trump came into office. He's accelerating that by changing federal policies and with the one big beautiful bill rescinding all those hundreds of billions of dollars in green subsidies that are now going away. Tesla made big news last week, for example, had a record high sales during the third quarter of this year. But of course, I think everyone knows that was mainly the result of potential EV buyers rushing out to take advantage of the $7,500 per unit federal subsidy, the IRA subsidy, that ended as of midnight last Tuesday, and as about no longer exists. And so Elon Musk's net worth rocketed up to over $500 billion briefly because Tesla stock went so high at the news of those record sales. But we can expect him to go back down a little bit below that level because the stock's probably going to take a hit as sales collapse during the fourth quarter. So all these things happening in the United States, it's a complete reversal of policy. And what happens in the United States, because of the size of the market here and the economy here, tends to have significant impacts throughout the Western world and in other parts of the world. And that's probably already happening and will continue to happen over time. But, as Irina and Tammy well know, things aren't going all that swimmingly for the net zero crowd in the UK and Europe either. And that was also kind of already happening before Trump took office. But again, I think there are impacts, and certainly he deserves some of the blame, or in my view, the credit for making that happen. And we're seeing kind of a return to reality, which is the topic of our podcast every week in the energy and climate space. And, I think ultimately that's going to inure to everyone's benefit globally. So we're in the middle of this kind of inflection point sea change, and 2 years from now, I think we'll all look back and realize this was kind of a moment when it all began to turn around.
Let's hope so. I know Tammy is pessimistic about it. She's suspicious of the many ways in which the net zero crowd can, keep pushing the narrative, and not just the narrative, but the actions. And I think you're absolutely right. I try to be optimistic, but you keep me in check, and I welcome that. Tell me about Europe. How are things going in Europe, besides the massive layoffs and layoff plans? And there was a Reuters report today, I think, that European companies are either freezing hiring or laying off people because the economy is not growing. Do you see any reason for optimism in Europe?
Well, it's funny because there's been some accounts on X and on Substack that have been documenting the thousands of jobs being lost in Germany over the past couple months. And it's insane. Like tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of jobs being lost in industries across the spectrum in Germany. And of course, you have to ask yourself, well, why is that? I mean, they have all these migrants there now, who want to do all the jobs that apparently no one else wants to do. But, when you have such high energy prices, and if you're like the German economy was a lot of heavy manufacturing and chemical production that requires a lot of energy inputs. And if that's very expensive, then those companies have to make decisions. Do they stay in Germany and Europe, or do they move elsewhere where it's more affordable and then export it back into the EU or something? And of course, the carbon border adjustment mechanism that is coming in January seeks to prevent that from happening, but it doesn't seem to be informing too many decisions at this moment. But you say I'm pessimistic. I think I'm being realistic because on the one hand, I really hope I'm wrong. I hope that the net zero will collapse and everything will go back to being realistic and whatnot. But to use the word realistic again, to be a realist, you have to look at what's happening below the surface. And there's all of these regulations and legislation that Europe is putting in because they want to extend the Brussels effect across the world, where they will be the leaders for regulations that everybody else should have to comply with respect to climate and labor, and biodiversity and everything in the ESG spectrum, which of course they don't call ESG anymore. They call corporate sustainability or corporate social responsibility or any of these other euphemisms. And all that stuff is still going forward. So we can say that in the United States, things are changing, and that's brilliant. Like David had pointed out, America does hold a lot of sway because of its large economy, because it's an innovative and more open market where if you have a cool idea, you can go to America, get financing and investment, and make it real. Like there's such a brain drain of really brilliant people from Canada, the UK, Australia, Europe, maybe not as many Europeans, who go to the United States and turn their ideas into multi-billion-dollar projects and companies. And you just don't see that in Europe. I mean, it's really difficult to innovate in Europe because of all the regulations and holding people back. And I think the way I would word this is that there's those within the European government and the institutions who have been cheerleading net zero for a long time. And of course, the UK is at the center of all that as well, where they're trying to tell the companies, hold the line. Trump is only here until 2028, which is why some of the regulations have been delayed implementation until 2028, hoping Trump will be gone. Democrats will have regained Congress that in their hopeful minds in 2026, I guess next year, and then he'll be gone in 28. And so they're like, hold the line, don't give up. We can still move forward with net zero. And I think what encapsulated that this past week, and sorry to go on for so long, was what kind of inspired this topic today anyway, was the Pope blessing a chunk of ice that was cut out from a Greenland iceberg, flown to the Vatican, preserved somehow with refrigeration, so that the Pope could do some kind of bizarre Gaia worship thing, blessing
like
the
the
ice.
golden calf, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was bizarre. And then all these people behind him doing some weird kind of hippie chant and stuff. And
Hillary hung out with the iceberg to make sure it stayed cold.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I mean, the same old people were there, right? And it was just bizarre. So here you've got the Oxford Net Zero group, who has their net zero stock take, where they identify all of the different companies, countries, whatever, who have made pledges or moving forward and so on, because they want to keep this idea of momentum going. Because if people start to step back and say, hey, I think things are slowing down here, we've lost the momentum, then things shift. So they have to really get out there with the narrative and say, momentum's still going, don't give up. We can still make this happen and make our people poor. So
momentum can be up or down.
Yeah.
Right. You can have the snowball effect either way.
But they seem to me to only have the narrative left, because on the ground, on the battlefield of net zero, things look differently. But to your realism point, I had a Substack reader from Sweden tell me that heavy industries in Sweden are also struggling because of exorbitant energy costs. And I said, but you have a government with some common sense right now. They should probably fix things, or at least do something about fixing things. And he said, yeah, but they're still buying the net zero idea.
Yeah.
They are better than the ones before, but they're still, dedicated to this net zero idea. And in that Pope blessing of the ice block, I see even more desperation. They don't know what else to do. They only have their narrative. I mean, one of the biggest manufacturers of solar installation inverters, SMA, in Germany, is laying people off because demand is declining. You can't cover this with a narrative. People are losing their jobs. These people know that net zero is not working, and even I'm sure you're right. I'm not arguing with you. I'm sure this is the message. Hold the line and wait until 2028. So, Stu, do you think Gavin Newsom will be the new president after Trump?
I don't think that greaseball can do anything other than cause an oil slick if he dove into the bay. I honestly do not understand. He is absolutely a waste of humanity, and a waste of skin. I'm moving over my search that I just did. I've got an article that I just pulled up that I was writing. And your comments, Tammy, were absolutely hilarious. In the last 10 years, 2015 through 2025, Germany manufacturing has lost between 300,000 and 400,000 jobs.
Yeah.
GDP figures in 2021, they actually had a 2.9 GDP growth. In 2022, they had a 1.8. 2023, let's see, its energy crisis mounts, and now they were down. 2024, they were down 0.2% GDP, and then now they are thinking they modestly might survive to break even. So,
Yeah.
They're not.
Oops.
That's why they want to change the metric, right? They want to get rid of GDP, and now they're going to have donut,
The
whatever.
donut thing, yeah.
The donut, and beyond GDP.
The donut of prosperity. I love it.
I think the Trump, and I know that we were laughing about the Trump effect, but I think the fear is actually real when you when you have and you sit back and say, wait a minute, they have done this to themselves by fear mongering through climate change using USAID as funding. So then they've come in and now everybody's going, wait a minute, is actually climate change is fearful because now they've lost all their funding. And then you had President Trump show up at Shark Week, and I mean UN Week, Climate Week, in a shark suit and absolutely eviscerate them. But before that happened, you had the three horsemen of the energy apocalypse show up. You had Lee Zeldin, Doug Burgum, and Chris Wright all absolutely just start laughing about climate change, changing the rules, and everything else. And then the big story last week was the banks, as they got rid of the Zumba, whatever.
The Net Zero Climate Alliance or something like Banking Alliance.
The Kumbaya, the group therapy, hug tank funding thing that the banks got rid of, and they all ran away. So this is really becoming a wait a minute wake up moment. And I think that we are now in a real position to be able to say, Stu was actually right for about 1.2 nanoseconds. And that is, the world is bifurcating into two groups. Those that are going to follow realistic energy policies, and those that follow net zero. Those that follow net zero are going to be bankrupt and fail, and regimes will change. Period. And then if you go this way, I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to say, wait a minute, we're going to be positive. China does not care. They are going to do whatever they can. They're going to create their own rules. They're going to use all the coal they possibly can. The United States is on the way to be using more coal. I believe that Alberta's vote is coming out here pretty soon, and we may have a new 51st state in about 10 years. It will be 10 years, but they're meeting with the president to be recognized. And I believe President Trump has already said, I will recognize Alberta if they go for their independence. So Albertans are actually more like Texans with a better attitude. And I would love to see
a lot more polite than Texans, yes.
A lot more polite, yeah. And I would love to see Alberta as a 51st state. Do I want the rest of Canada? Heck no. Leave them folks off on their own and have a great time. So again, we're going to be bifurcating into two groups. And I think that we've had this media here before. We did this probably about a year ago, when you realize the truth about energy and you see a cow here going, wait a minute, what? It really is true. Cheap energy equals industrialization. Expensive energy equals deindustrialization.
Yeah.
And I believe that there is a truth to this story, that we have all the wind and solar that we can afford to have on our grids. It is a mismatch to keep adding wind and solar to the grid. My opinion.
Yeah, it
It's
messes with
interesting.
your reliability, obviously. Yeah.
It's interesting you showed the cow. Did you see the story that no, it was in the Financial Times, so you probably didn't. But the chief executive of JSB, was that the name of the biggest
JBS.
JBS? Sorry,
Yeah.
I hate these abbreviations. Anyway, so he was saying that there's essentially a shortage of beef in the US because there
Yeah.
is a protein craze.
A protein craze. Okay.
Yeah, suddenly they're calling healthy eating a protein craze. That it's not just net zero emissions. People are actually rediscovering real food. At the same time that the UK is once again warning against eating a lot of meat because it's bad for the climate or something.
Yeah. Of course. And yeah. But
Bill
I mean,
Gates and John Terry, and
the JBS argument, though, is a bit disingenuous because if you look at the size of the herds in North America, the United States and Canada have been in decline for about the past 5 or 6 years, and they're at quite historic lows.
Yeah.
Mexico's very high. So yeah, okay, people are wanting to eat more beef now or whatever, for healthy eating, as you point out. But the part of the reason why it's so expensive is that there's not enough cows. And they have to rebuild the herds, and that takes another 3 or 4 years. So,
Yeah.
Well, and there's also the mysterious burning down of about 30% of our meat processing capacity in the United States over the last 5 years. Just hundreds and hundreds of facilities burned to the ground, and we're supposed to believe it's all just coincidental, right?
Nobody's brought up the problem with China, that we import so much of our beef, and most of our manufacturing plants in the United States are owned by China. Oops.
The meat processing
Yep.
plants.
I don't know about that, Stu. Like, I mean,
I don't think that's
JBS
right.
is Brazil, and
They're
Cargill
owned by
is North
foreign-
American.
Yeah, but do the dotted line math. Who owns the ports outside of the Panama Canal? Somebody in Shanghai who is owned by China. Do some trails around. Let's go take a look at that. I'll go back that one up.
But it's interesting because there were so many attempts to make, as part of the net zero push, to make artificial meat, lab-grown meat, veggie meat substitutes, and they seem to be flopping one after the other.
Oh, it's completely collapsed in the United States. I don't know about Europe, but I mean, we don't even see it in our stores where I am anymore. We had huge displays. They had the grocery stores here in the town where I live had all set aside about a third of their meat cases for this artificial crap, right?
Yeah.
This was 3 years ago, and it lasted about 6 months, and now it's all completely disappeared from the stores. Completely collapsed, at least in Texas. I don't know about the other parts of the country.
Well, probably there aren't many vegans in Texas.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, all those people you've got being imported from California.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, but they're all in Austin, so it doesn't really infiltrate the rest of our state. I want to go back to one thing before we get out of this segment, if you don't mind, this Oxford net zero stockade thing.
Yeah.
And there, Tammy forwarded us a post by Steve Smith, who's, I guess, one of the guys who creates this. And in his post on LinkedIn, here's 2 of the bullet points he lists. It says U.S. companies with net zero targets jumped 9% in 1 year, now representing $12 trillion in global revenue, 64% of the revenue of assessed U.S. companies. Okay, so all these companies are making these commitments, and then he talks about cities are also doing it, yada, yada, yada. 2 bullet points later, he says, oops, the integrity of the targets remains stubbornly low. Only 7% of companies and 4% of cities meet minimum levels of substantive procedural detail. What does that tell us? It tells us this is about 93% virtue signaling and 7% substance. So I mean, this guy, even in his own posts, admits that they're failing.
They're right. And his argument is that they're failing because they're voluntary. And that if you mandate the transition plan with targets that are real, that if you don't fulfill those targets, you can be litigated. That's what they're aiming for. And that's what's actually in the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive of the EU, is where you must have a transition plan that is, we got Irina twice. Hey.
Yeah.
Now she's back. Okay.
That when you have those transition plans, you must follow what you've laid out, or if you don't follow it, you can be sued for misleading your investors. Right. So, I mean, on the one hand, this is always the argument. Oh, well, they said all this stuff, but it's just greenwashing. They're just saying whatever it takes in order to get, the engos off their back or to get investors or whatever. So we need to make it mandatory. Whenever they talk like this, it's because, voluntary is failing. We need a mandatory means in which to go after companies. And if I could also comment on Stu's...
But that just reinforces the point you and everyone else here has made for years now, is what net zero is really all about is eliminating democratic processes and implementing a completely authoritarian, totalitarian form of government in the Western world. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. And with respect to the bifurcation, I think we would have seen this more because the United States was part of the side embracing net zero until Donald Trump was elected. And so we had the EU and the Western countries, and that's why we had the rise of the BRICS, who were going a different direction. And China was trying to kind of play them both, and India was trying to play them both. But now I agree that bifurcation is still there, but it's so weak now. Without the United States to back up the EU's, whatever global campaign for net zero, it's really difficult for them to make it to the end of what they want. So while I'm happy that America is going in this direction, I'm not so sure about if these states are going to wake up. AI has certainly been a real wake-up call for these states and corporations, because it's like, well, now we need reliable energy. Before we could say, you'll just have to make do with wind and solar, but now they need it. And now with supposedly World War III on the horizon, how are you going to make weapons if you can only do it when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining? So
nobody.
They don't even have the steel to make weapons.
Or the steel, exactly.
Yeah.
They're going to
import
that from China,
though. It comes from China. Last week, Stu and I were doing a podcast with Josh Young, and one of our viewers on the live stream said, most of these AI campuses are going to be powered with wind and solar, right? I mean, and that's what a lot of these companies are claiming, right? They claim their capacity, they're going to build enough wind and solar capacity to power their campuses. Well, what they're doing is they're going to power their campuses with their facilities with natural gas, most of them, and some of them with coal and some with nuclear, where nuclear is currently available, which isn't much. But they're going to build that wind and solar and then try to get it tied, wait several years to get it tied onto the grid so that they can claim that they're net zero, because they're building the wind and solar capacity, which may or may not ever be linked into a power grid, but they're actually going to get their power from behind the meter natural gas, most of them. And that's just another element of this that shows it's 93% virtue signaling and 7% substance.
It's an offset.
Generous.
Yeah, it's an offset. Right. It's an offset.
But you have to have offsets with integrity. This is what Mark Carney talked about before he became prime minister, that
Right.
the voluntary carbon markets need to be high integrity.
So,
Which
to
means
get,
what?
you have to eliminate democratic processes.
Right.
Because if you don't eliminate the democratic processes, you end up eventually getting an election like they just had in Czechoslovakia, right? With the Donald Trump of
The Czech
Czechoslovakia
Republic.
winning the election.
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I apologize. God, I'm still living in the 70s.
No, they actually separated. United before the Second World War. Anyway, but yeah, how did the European Union miss the Czechs? They were too focused on the
I
Moldovan
know.
side.
They didn't kill the guy before the election. It's weird.
I think they were too busy with Moldova.
Yeah, they did. There was a lot of interference with Moldova there.
Uh-huh. And trying to
Yeah.
outlaw the AFD in Germany and,
And Romania.
imprison what's her name in France. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the French
Yeah.
government just resigned again.
yeah, the
Yeah.
prime minister. Holy cow.
Because his cabinet was pretty much the same as before. So it was like, okay, why?
He lasted a month. I'm trying to remember
Yeah.
what was the British PM who only lasted maybe 5 or 6 weeks. He didn't even
Liz
last
Truss.
Liz. He didn't even
Yeah.
last as long as Liz Truss.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, at least she was elected.
She was elected, yes.
Oh, speaking of the UK, the Conservative leader last week said, and they're having their Conservative conference this week, said she would repeal the Climate Change Act and would no longer try to do net zero. And then former Prime Minister Theresa May came out appalled. Oh my gosh, 17 years of consensus will be down the drain. 17 years of a
Boom.
uniparty. And rightly so down the drain.
That would be so
And this is
good.
why the
Yeah.
Tories have about a 4% public approval rating these days.
That's right. So I don't know. I mean, the Conservatives can say that, but unless something severe happens with reform, I really don't see them getting a significant number of seats in the next election. But it's still 4
Dead
years away, so who knows?
Yeah. It's a shame. I mean, they've literally committed political, I can't use the word,
Harry Carey.
self-deletion. Harry Carey, thank you.
Seppuku.
Yep.
Yeah, well, they're not the only ones.
Yes.
Well, have we exhausted the topic?
I don't know.
Stu?
Stu's got a look on his face. He may have something
Yeah,
else to say.
I think he has to add something.
No. I was just going to make a really bad joke, but I'll just leave it alone for that.
Oh, you love bad jokes. It's the only kind I tell.
Did I get these stories right? I hope. Oh, those are
Yes.
stories? Oh, okay, good.
Those are my stories. So, the first one is with the Wall Street Journal, and this story really annoyed me because I feel like the PMO's office contacted the journalist who could be, or the editor who's a friend with Gerald Butts or somebody, and said, we need a story about Canada because we have the talks coming up with Trump. And we need something where that Trump might read and consider Mark Carney not a danger. So it's like this title is so wrong. Mark Carney's shift from climate change warrior to fossil fuel cheerleader. And I'm just like, really? There were so many misleading bits of information, which I put 10 points on Substack that they were just so wrong about. Like saying that Mark Carney has gotten rid of many of Justin Trudeau's climate initiatives. He didn't get rid of anything. He put the consumer carbon tax temporarily to zero. So he didn't get rid of it. He just said,
Didn't
I'm going to
Trudeau
set it.
do that at one point too?
No. So Carney
Oh, he
did that
didn't? Okay.
like the minute he became leader. And then because the auto industry was really upset about what's happening, he said that because Canada has a stupid electric vehicle mandate like the UK, where they're saying a certain percentage of vehicles a new vehicle sold must be electric and not hybrids. They have to be like full electric. And so he temporarily delayed the mandate because it was supposed to start in January. And all the manufacturers are like, what are you doing? We can't do this. And then he supported sort of a new LNG facility that would be mostly owned by an indigenous group, but there's another indigenous group that's angry about it. They've already issued a court challenge against the pipeline that would feed the project. So, and then the other day, Tim Hodgson said, well, an LNG pipeline through Quebec wouldn't be of national interest, so don't even talk about it. And onward and onward. So it's just like everything in that article was a half truth or just wrong. And I kept thinking the Wall Street Journal should do better. But the only reason I could think of why they would publish that without really looking at, from an editorial perspective, is that they wanted to make a case about Canada to Trump this week because Carney's coming to Washington to talk about something. And then what's interesting is that a lot of the provinces that support net zero in Canada are telling American companies that have lost their subsidies in the United States saying, hey, come to Canada. So our natural resources minister announced $22 million for Quebec EV battery innovation and it'll be spread around again. They've already wasted over $52 billion on the EV supply chain, but they're going to throw another $22 million to Quebec. And supposedly there's also a company in Nova Scotia who will get a couple million, and maybe one in Ontario that'll get a couple million. But hey, Quebec, be happy because you're getting all this extra money. So yeah, if you thought that all this EV stuff was done in Canada, no, it isn't. They're still throwing money, even though our parliamentary budget office came out and said, we're at catastrophic levels of debt. And what Mark Carney is proposing, his spending so far will be double what Justin Trudeau had been pledging before he got turfed.
Holy
so here we have an economist who's going to put us so much in debt. I don't know. Are we going to need an IMF bailout? Maybe.
Imagine that.
I think Trump may go, I got $1.50. I'll buy your way out of it. He may end up buying Canada. I'm not kidding. I mean, if Canada goes broke, it is absolutely going to be hilarious. It is a self-imposed catastrophe that they have going on.
I think that they'll sell assets and they'll sell it to Brookfield. Or to BlackRock or to State Street or any of the other big institutional investors.
So they'll have their own country. That's nice.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? Canada has a lot of minerals. It'll be great.
Oh, yeah, it does. And oil.
Oh, suddenly it'd be okay to start taking advantage of natural resources if somebody else owned it. Wow.
Yeah, wow. Imagine that. And they'll buy it for pennies on the dollar. Great investment.
Yeah, I heard the U.S. bought Alaska from Russia for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, way back in 1867, the same year that Canada became a country.
How about that? I didn't know that.
And people can find you on?
You can find me on the nemuthreport.substack.com, and I try to publish an article there at least once a week, and sometimes a podcast. Thank you.
Always good stuff. Oh, here's me. Well, the second one there is the donut of prosperity thing that we've kind of talked about already. The UN and the journal Nature want to eliminate GDP as a goal for all nations because their belief is that a focus on growing your country's gross domestic product takes away from their goals on net zero, achieving net zero by 2050, which is an impossible goal and basically results in economic suicide or, self-deletion. Well, too late. I've already messed this up with YouTube. Anyway, so that it's just the biggest bag of nonsense I've ever seen in my life. And it just, I try to laugh at this stuff, but really, it just really kind of pissed me off to read that.
Yeah.
Because it's so dishonest, so completely, totally, thoroughly dishonest that it doesn't really even deserve to be talked about. The other one is the other story is we've also addressed the Net Zero Banking Alliance folds after a mass exodus from its members, mainly U.S. banks, who saw the handwriting on the wall beginning last November and decided, oh, well, we really don't need to be spending capital on what is clearly an antitrust alignment with banks from Europe and other parts of the world, and clearly in violation of U.S. antitrust laws. And so to avoid likely prosecution but by the U.S. Department of Justice under Pam Bondi, they all decided it was the better part of valor to get the hell out of that organization. And now the organization's completely collapsed, which is good news for the entire world.
Yeah, Mark Carney used to head that up. And then when he left to become Prime Minister of Canada, Mike Bloomberg took over the reins. And, maybe he was just getting tired. He's getting up there in age.
Yeah, he's got to be 80 at this point, doesn't he? I mean,
Yeah.
he's probably done, he's probably getting exhausted, I would guess.
Yeah, well, George Soros is like 300 and he's still meddling everywhere
Yeah,
he
and
can.
now he's got his evil son doing his bidding. So that's
Yeah.
going to keep going on until our government wakes up and puts them behind bars where they belong.
I believe he's going to get perp walked here probably 3 weeks.
Mm.
Well, that would be delicious. I'll look forward to writing about that.
Makes 3 of us.
Or 4 of us. Anyway. Okay, you can find me at blackmon.substack.com. It's called the Energy Editions, David Blackmon's Energy Editions. It's rebranded. It used to be Energy Transition Absurdities, but there is no energy transition, so I decided I needed a rebrand.
Sounds good.
NZBA failed because it was not formed with the correct goals and violates rules and is just plain stupid. Yes, thank you, Jeff Chestnut. That's
We love Jeff.
more succinctly put than I managed to do.
All right, 2 Reuters stories, both from the same author, who is soldiering on in the face of all evidence that the transition is going nowhere. So the first one, and it's, as David said, delicious. Italy's economic rules have a climate upside for now.
For
The
now.
Of course they do. Yeah.
The climate upside is that Italy's emissions are falling, basically in tune with its GDP decline, which is no surprise. We had emissions significantly down during the lockdowns of 2020. So there is clearly a causal link between bad economic performance by a country and its emissions, as evidenced by China's and India's emissions, which are growing along with their GDP. But the very fact that he's stating that very openly and very, matter-of-factly, like it's normal. If you're struggling economically, at least your emissions are down, and that's a good thing.
Hey, that's a good
How?
thing.
How is this okay?
Sure,
to
you're
write?
hungry. Sure, you can't pay. You're out on the streets because you
But
can't pay the
you're
rent, but your
emitting
emissions
less,
are
and
down.
that's a
So be
good
happy.
thing.
Yeah.
No
Everybody
one-
rejoice.
Yeah, no one cares about emissions when they're hungry or cannot pay their electricity bill. So it's okay.
It's just
I'm going to
ghoulish.
give a lie.
Yeah. And that's why they
Not a
needed
nice
to bless a
story.
block of ice.
Yeah. Maybe he should have sung some praise to Italy for, mismanaging its economy, because that brought down emissions.
Yeah.
And the other story, this guy, California solar and battery combo packs a transformational punch, meaning that California has so much solar and so much battery capacity that it produces these immense amounts of energy, which it can store. In other news that is not news, California has the most expensive electricity in the United States.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a transformational punch for sure. And if that is such a transformational punch, I can't stop repeating that. Why is Gavin Newsom now courting big oil? Because he wants to run for president. We already know that. But why? Why does he need big oil if he believes in net zero and the transformational power of solar and batteries, as evidenced by what's happening in California? Or does he need more voters than the zombified Californians? I'm really sorry, but if there are people still believing that this person says is true, they are zombified.
Yeah.
And there
Yes.
was a discussion about it on my latest Substack, which was about California and its solar story, its net zero story. How do you get people to believe outright lies? As in, it's obviously a lie, and people who live there would know, because their electricity bills were only started to go up when California stepped on that net zero path.
Yeah.
Who believes that it's all big oil's fault? And why? How does this happen? Can any one of you explain this to me? Because I've struggled to understand it.
Oh, it's just a great brainwashing campaign by Democrat politicians working in conjunction with the media and the education system. And, it's the Goebbels philosophy that a big lie told often enough eventually becomes
Oh, I
perceived as
see.
truth.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Now I see.
That comment that was up there was really good, saying it will be interesting to watch the environmental impact while disposing of all these net zero tools like batteries and solar panels. Any word on this? Only
Yes,
from
the
us.
landfills are getting full. Yeah, that's
Well,
the word.
in the United States, there are 79,000 wind turbines. Of the 79,000 wind turbines, guess how many have land reclamation already in their budget?
Zero.
Zero.
I think.
Guess how much that's going to be a liability you want to know how much it's going to cost? About $90 billion now. $90 billion that has not been budgeted in order to get rid of that. The solar panels, the United States is doing very, very good. We're putting them on boats and shipping them to other countries and then dumping them in the ocean.
Dumping them in the ocean. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's terrible. It is
That's what's
absolutely
happening.
despicable.
Wow.
They're going to
And-
poison the oceans with them.
Yeah.
And people
By the
find
way, just a note, since I'm in Texas, a note to our governor, Greg Abbott, and our members of our PUC and Railroad Commission. This is on your head, folks. A lot of that crap's in Texas, and you've done nothing to regulatory require the proper removal, retirement, and disposal of all that crap. So it's on your head. It's on the Republican Party's head in the state of Texas, because you guys have been controlled throughout the entire history of this idiotic pursuit.
Yeah.
yes. And have you seen a hailstorm in Texas lately?
Oh, yeah. That's
Okay,
pretty bad.
We have I love Irina's Substack. It is absolutely outstanding. All right. We have the Chevron fire. I actually found a couple of people out there that were talking about the Chevron fire. David and I were talking about this last week. There was a possible drone strike from Venezuela on the explosion. It was not a normal explosion that it was. I'm trying to find updates. I can't find those sources again that said it was a possible drone strike. But if it was a drone strike, it would not surprise me. It is an unproven story, but I'm trying to find those again. It is a huge refinery in El Segundo, and it's out. It supplies 40% of the jet fuel in Southern California, the military, the jet fuel, gasoline. It is a huge story. Then you add on to that the 20% of the refining capacity about to close within the next year. Gasoline will be at least $10 a gallon, and diesel as well. And then we will be importing more from Iraq. because they've opened up their new pipeline. So all the Californians went, yay, we're going to save the planet and import more oil from Iraq from a new pipeline that they just reopened again. Pretty exciting stuff.
To be clear, the ones that are retiring is not the Chevron refinery. It's the Valero and Phillips 66 refineries, right? I mean,
that is correct.
Chevron, at least currently, says it has no plans to close El Segundo, which is 114 years old. So we'll see how long Chevron maintains that commitment after this major accident.
The damage done, I can't get anybody to respond to phone calls or anything going, how bad is it? Hello, McFly, are you going to reopen? This is a national security issue for the United States, because you can't just import jet fuel from China for the U.S. military. It does not work that way.
But that's what'll end up having to happen, because, you know, they can't get it from other parts of the country. There aren't any pipelines coming into California that carry jet fuel, so they'll have to import it.
Why was a tanker hit? Why was a tanker hit off of the UK coast that was a United States tanker for jet fuel? It blew up. Deal. Yeah, it is a little bit of a security issue. The next article I thought was absolutely fun was AI computing demand, an additional 55 gigawatts of power capacity required globally. And the comments all over the world are, guess what? We're going to add wind and solar.
Of course.
Oh, you got absolutely. It is absolutely.
Can I say something on that? 55 gigawatts is an incredible underestimate. I mean, we're going to need that much additional capacity. We might need that much additional capacity ultimately in Texas, because I mean, we're going to host a ton of these data centers. Yeah, I mean, well, it's not going to be wind and solar, obviously. I mean, they'll build it, but I mean that it may never generate anything.
Yes, and
what a waste.
And when Christopher Lloyd said 8.310 gigawatts, what did he?
1.21 gigawatts.
I got to really practice that. I'm feeling a little left out here. I'm bringing the wrong one here, but okay. So 1.5 trillion in the U.S., David, is what it's expected in order to bring this in. And what I did not realize when I wrote the article last week and I started looking at the data centers, there's been about a 210% increase in power prices in the Upper East Coast because of AI data centers and their relative location to the transmission lines. So when you take a look in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there has been 100% increase in power because the data centers that are in Oklahoma are about 70 miles away. So you sit back and take a look at where the data centers are going in, how much they went from 230% increase in cost to the consumers. So everywhere in Texas, they're looking at them behind the meter so they won't be impacting directly the consumers, but they will be impacting the consumers when natural gas prices go up. So it is going to be a wish-wash on where all that's going. So it's going to be pretty entertaining on how all this is going to be coming around. All right.
Yeah.
And you can find me on the energynewsbeat.substack.com, or you can find me on theenergynewsbeat.com. And we have a lot of fun there. We're now between 100 and 200,000 people a day on the site. And I'd like to give a shout out to all the people trying to hack it. Go away. Morons. I can't believe how many people are actually trying to hack that site every day. We get between 7,000 and 10,000 denial of service attacks a day. Some of them, when they start getting into the SQL injection attacks, I get a little irritated. So I've got a couple guys that I send over the IP addresses, and I'm getting a list built up of who these knuckleheads are. It's amazing who these knuckleheads are trying to attack my site. By the way, have a great day, guys, because you're going to find somebody on your doorstep with a badge, not me. Just thought I'd share that.
You sound scary.
He is
It
scary.
does.
He's a scary dude. He's got his own backhoe, man. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't
You
call
ride with your own
911.
backhoe.
I do not call 911. I don't even call 811. 811 in the United States is where are the lines buried
Where's
so
the
you know
box?
where to
Yeah.
dig. All I
Ah.
need to know is where to dig.
Hmm. You got to know where to dig, otherwise
gotta
it could
know.
be catastrophic.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Sure could. Well, we still got 5 minutes, man. We have
Hey, that's
this has
amazing.
been very
Very
efficient here.
efficient today. Yeah.
Is it because it was Irina?
I'm very efficient.
And she's all dressed up in her business attire today. So she,
No,
she
I
meant-
just haven't, brought out my cardigans.
It's not cold enough yet.
Sorry?
Is it not cold enough for the cardigans
Well,
yet?
it is cold, but I'm holding out on the cardigans for a while longer to not jinx the cold weather. I don't want it too cold, but I don't want it to get warm again.
I'm actually looking forward to getting to wear some winter clothes. This
Yes,
summer has been very
lots
mild, but it
sleep.
just keeps lingering.
Yeah, we had that last year. It was really, really annoying.
Yeah.
AC in the car on in November, but not for heating, but for cooling. Come on. Nice
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Stu, what is that cap you're holding up there?
It's the Marvel Punisher logo
Oh,
with
yeah,
the American
yeah.
flag, but I have on the back of it, "In God We Trust." So
I'm trusting God's going to send me some rain pretty soon. My yard's getting awful dry out here.
Yep.
But if we have wolves, I got to take care of the wolves, feed the wolves.
Oh yeah, and
my
bond with
gosh.
them, bond with nature.
That's right.
That's right.
So here's the
Well,
Stu Turley question of the day. How do you tell the difference between a wolf and a coyote?
About 20 pounds.
Yeah, 20 pounds and shorter legs, right?
That's exactly right. And a coyote looks more like a Democrat, and a wolf actually is a very elegant animal that is really very nice. Coyotes, they all do that kind of noise and everything else. And a wolf, elegant,
Yeah,
elegant animal.
clean,
A wolf
howling.
is elegant, and a coyote is a Democrat. So
Aw, that's
We
so
have
mean.
jackals around, which are kind of like coyotes, but even smaller, a lot smaller. I think
Yeah.
they're like this big. You said like Democrats. Ours make similar noises. They can actually startle you because they sometimes sound like crying children,
Yeah.
Oh.
wailing children. Yeah, in the middle of the night.
I usually stand out. I used to at our place. In fact, I used to stand out on our front porch and start singing to them. So I'm a coyote. Was it a coyote whisperer? So does that mean that I can talk to Democrats and actually understand them? No, they're too stupid.
No.
So, and I'm going to throw rhinos into that since I'm now a America first only and no longer supporting rhinos.
Hmm. Good idea.
Way too
And
much.
then there's hyenas, which are the Antifa of the dog world.
So much animal offensiveness from you.
Well,
I mean,
why is it?
Yeah. Why are we discriminating against these poor animals and
Poor.
anthropomorphizing them?
innocent animals, yeah.
And donkeys are pretty darn smart. And donkeys, if you want to sit back and think about a donkey, donkeys, my granddad always had donkeys around to protect the other animals. Donkeys were protectors. They were very smart.
Very smart and aggressive, yeah.
Smart, aggressive. But what happened to the whole breed of donkeys in the political world of the United States? They got inbred. Holy smoke! I
One
mean,
way of looking at it.
just
Yeah.
look at Illy and Omar marrying her brother. You know,
Okay, now we got to close this down. We went to Ilhan Omar. It's time to stop.
yeah.
Too far. Went too far.
With that,
Have
All
a
right.
great week, everyone. David,
See you
may you
next
get
week.
some rain.
I'm hoping